Hi there, it's Kevin with GatheringMagic.com here with a wrap-up video for UB Heroics. I'm really liking this deck. I think it's very fun to play. It definitely does have some holes in it, as we got to see with the red deck wins matchup and with the U-White control. U-White control seems very, very unwinnable at this point. You'd have to get an incredibly aggressive start with Tormented Hero, and I cut the Rakdos Cacklers because they were just kind of clunky, and I think those were actually decent versus the U-White control. I'm liking the Throw Parasite in theory, that it should work nicely, another hidden strings type target that you can get at least an extort every turn if you can actually swing in and get the hidden strings off. So it's kind of like another heroic card, as it does interact well with the spells. So I'm really liking Swan Song in this deck. I think it's great. It's of course not that great versus red deck wins, so maybe it's not mainboardable. Maybe this needs to go to the sideboard. And I'm sure there's some better cards to play here and there. I'm loving the far and away, and maybe I run more copies than Disperse. Maybe there's nothing in this format that is a non-creature that I really worry about bouncing back. I mean, Detention Sphere, if I bounce back a Detention Sphere, they cast it the next turn. If I bounce back a Planeswalker, they've already got value out of it, they just cast it the next turn and whatnot. Definitely think about using some counter magic besides Swan Song for the control matchups, and maybe that's how you beat the control matchups, but you have to find some sort of way to have an answer versus Supreme Verdict, and the only one in the format that I think is in the colors is that would be an answer for Supreme Verdict would be, I can't remember what the card is called, but you regenerate a creature gets +2/+0, and you lose 2 life. So let's see what it's called. It's called Boon of Erebos. So, but that's only one creature, you only keep one of them alive. So I definitely need to find an answer, a better answer for Supreme Verdict. It might be just splashing green in here for something like Golgari Charm, but then our mana base is a little bit weird, and it's starting to lose kind of the whole theme of the deck. There isn't much that green can offer as far as beneficial spells that blue doesn't already do. Like hidden Mizzium Skin is very similar to a card like Ranger's Guile that I'd want. And then I guess Mending Touch would be something else. And Simic Charm would definitely be a thing. It can bounce. It can give your guys +3/+3, or it can give hexproof as well. But it gives all perms hexproof. It doesn't target, right? Isn't it? I think that's what Simic Charm does. We'll check it out here and see if that's the case. All right, so it's lagging here pretty bad. So Simic Charm, yeah, permanents you control gain hexproof until in a turn. So it's something I don't think would fit well in this deck. So there is that glaring hole that we have in this deck for the blue-white control. I don't know how popular the deck is going to be. It seems like it does have some decent matchups versus red deck wins, but I think it's just incredibly bad against the U-White aggro, and they have so many answers versus U-White control. Right now with the decks that I'm seeing being played in the U-White, there's a lot of Advent the Worms, there's a lot of Rootborn Defenses. If nothing else, they pop down a turn 2 Voice of Resurgence, and it's very hard for the U-White control to really come back from just a very quick Voice of Resurgence type card. And then Experiment 1 is another card that survives a Supreme Verdict, as it's usually up to 3, and you can just remove counters and regenerate it and then start to evolve it again. So that's definitely a deck we'll have to be looking at too, to beat consistently, and I think that this is where this deck shines, as we got to see in the last matchup, as this deck is just so good. If you can stick a Agent of Fates out, it is game. They can pump out as many tokens as they want. They can continue to try to beat you down, and you can just continue to make them sack a creature per turn or draw extra cards per turn. I mean, it's just got cards like Far and Away are just killer versus the green-white decks. So that's the one thing we got going for us. The Woodlot Crawlers were definitely all-stars. I think there's enough green decks to make it worth it playing the Woodlot Crawlers. You could definitely go Lifebane Zombie if you don't want to go Woodlot Crawlers. Lifebane Zombie is also another one that's great to hook up with a Hidden Strings, as you can cast it each turn. So not a bad card whatsoever. as far as siding against red, we could definitely go the Gift of Orzhova, I'm thinking, since it does trigger off heroic, and even if you put on like a Tormented Hero, it becomes a 3/2. Yes, a little bit vulnerable to the shocks and whatnot, but you can get some life gain out of it. And you throw it on an Agent of Fates. It's out of range of the shocks, but it can still be lightning striked. So again, I don't know exactly what the best strategy against red deck wins would be. Maybe running more counter magic, maybe actually running cards like Duress to actually get out, because it's not really the creatures that bug us in that matchup, it's the removal. Because if they remove one of our creatures, like they remove our Tormented Hero, we're not going to get that incremental life gain per turn. So my cards maybe like Duress would be probably clutch versus red deck wins. We'll have to test it out. I'm definitely not done with this deck, and Pharika's Curse, our Cure, I keep thinking it's a curse because, man, whenever does black have cures? Anyway, the Pharika's Cure is great versus that matchup. It kills most of their stuff. Kills like their Fanatic Amogus, kills Ash Zealots, kills Firefist Strikers. It kills everything in their deck, but I would say Boros Reckoner. So again, this deck in theory should do well against red deck wins. It just that matchup just didn't go our way. Maybe more Mizzium Skins in the main board. And then again, maybe more Triton Tactics. I definitely have some work to do with this deck, but it was a lot of fun. It's very inexpensive, as you can see if I by rarity sort here. The only things that are rare, I mean, we got the Watery Graves and Temple of Deceit, which are going to be the bulk of the cost of this deck. But then you have things like Swan Song and Agent of Fates that aren't going for very much at the moment. And then a lot of uncommons and commons. And so, again, in my sideboard, I thought these Dustmantle Seers might be pretty good against the control. But now that I think about it, they probably won't do much. And they still give our opponent some card advantage as well. Or they at least, I mean, hitting like in UI control, the only thing you'd really hit is maybe a Jace Architect of Thought for 4, Sphinx Revelation for 3. They don't really play a lot of huge cards. Maybe Aetherlink for 6. But other than that, it's I don't know what Dustmantle Seer would actually be good, what matchups would actually be good. You could go Ashiok Nightmare Weaver, but of course, when you're up to Ashiok, you're up to, what, $30 a piece now, or $35 a piece for Ashioks, so it's anything but a budget deck. But if you are trying to make this deck more serious, this could definitely be a great sideboard choice to bring in into UI control decks. They have a very hard time to deal with them. They have Detention Spheres, but other than that, they don't really have much. They can actually stop an Ashiok that gets popped down on third turn. You won't really find anything with the exile of the top 3 cards to cast. You might find an occasional like Precinct Captain or Aetherling, but I mean, if this guy gets up to 10 pretty quickly, he can. I mean, you're milling 3 cards per turn, and it is something that eventually can mill them out, especially when they're drawing so many cards off of divinations and the other card draws they have in their deck. So there, and then you could also, if you really want to go a better mill card, you could go Jace Memory Adept as a sideboard card versus the control. So you're in the colors that are actually good versus UI control with these two bad boys, if you can actually stick them. And you could dedicate more of your sideboard to cards like Thoughtseize and Duress and things like that, and it'd be a great matchup versus the control matchup. So I think that the first addition that really needs to come to this deck is Duress, because I think I would put it in versus red deck wins, because that's what seems to be the problematic cards, is not their Boros Reckoners, is not their Fanatic Amoguses, not their Ash Zealots, nothing like that. It's the all the direct damage spells that kills your Agent of Fates and your Tormented Heroes. So Duress is first turn Duress, slapping down a Duress, getting rid of one of those burn spells. Really, and red deck wins really needs all of its cards. The less cards are better. Like say on matchups where you mold a 6 and they mold a 6, the advantage always goes to you against red deck. Red deck wins wants all of its cards for a 4th turn, 5th turn kill before they start running out of steam. The current red deck wins has a little bit more reach with like Fanatic Amogus and the Chandra's Phoenix that can late game do some more damage. And Chandra's Phoenix is really hard to deal with now that Pillar is out of the format. So the only real strategy or real tools against it are Scavenging Ooze, which not many people are playing at the moment. So, and this deck, I guess this deck doesn't really have a way. You could go, there's like Valerie Birth, you could go for those type of cards, but it wouldn't work in this deck. Anyway, I'm thinking with the right tweaking, this deck can actually be competitive. 2-2 is not bad. It is a new format, but we did go up against the number 1, number 2, number 3 deck. We went up against all of them. Those are the 3 decks that are being played right now. Besides that first one, that green ramp was very interesting though. I'm glad I got to show that because that was a sweet deck. He ramped pretty quickly into with the Nixos, the land that taps for whatever your devotion is to that color, and was able to ramp into those huge drops pretty quickly. And the cool thing about that was the monstrosity of the World Eater. As if you're tapping it for 13 mana, that's not bad at all. It's going to get like 6 counters and divide 6 damage. That's a great little interaction, I thought. But anyway, so we got to see the number 1 deck, which is red deck, wins right now, and I would say the number 2 deck, which is you white. Or actually, I would say that you white control and Celestia tokens are probably still in that tier, what we consider tier 1. And there's some other fringe strategies. Again, the metagame isn't at all developed right now. It's wide open. It's the first. I think MTGO has more of an impact than any Star City Open, or even the Pro Tour Theros will have a lot of impact. But again, it's not nearly, it's just the ability to just mine data on MTGO and to really just see which decks perform against the field is so much better than any sort of live paper tournament will ever do. So, I mean, since it's only been available, Standard has only been available for a couple days here on MTGO, I think we have a lot of room to grow and a lot of new decks that haven't been discovered yet. So, speaking of that, I run a channel called RogueDeckBuilder.com. That's what I try to do. I'm glad I got to showcase kind of a rogue original deck. A lot of times I'm playing on a budget. What I have done in the past is taken some tier 1 decks or tier 2 decks that have done well and just made them budget. So, but my real true love in life, the reason why I play Magic is for the rogue deck building, and I'm glad I was able to showcase my first Theros deck as a rogue deck, as I don't know anyone else that's running this strategy. I got a lot of compliments when I was testing this. It surprisingly works. Like I said, against the green-white deck, it just runs amazing. That's how it runs as well against Domri red-green decks as well. You just pop down those Woodlot Crawler are so amazing versus those, and you're able to just make them sack a creature. I had a guy that I had a Woodlot Crawler out, so of course he can't target a lot of things with the Domri, and I was keeping him low anyway so that he had to plus 1 him every turn rather than fight anything, but he was hitting every turn with his Domri, and it was like, oh, just sack that, oh, just sack that, oh, just sack that. And the Agent of Fates is incredibly powerful when you hook it up with hidden strings or other cards. So I'm hoping the next set we actually get another blue or black beneficial spell that will make these cards a little bit better. Anyway, I've rambled for long enough. This definitely has a lot of options. There are plenty of cards out here to make this to tweak around with this deck. So I hope you test this out. Give me some feedback, what cards you would add and remove. This is Kevin from GatheringMagic.com. Thanks for watching.
For more Magic the Gathering videos, come check out my channel at YouTube/RogueDeckBuilder. Thanks for watching.